So it's
Hi,
it's
hello.
3 p.m. Hello, welcome everyone. We are happy that we have the first opportunity to meet you in person during initial discussions about Consumer Engagement Labs project. My name is Krzysztof Klincewicz. Together with Magdalena and Adnan, we'll try to explain you today some basics in terms of administrative issues, registrations, cost control, and all of the formal requirements of the project. And for your convenience, we are going to record the first part of the meeting. So the part where I'm going to show you some slides and Magdalena afterwards will follow up so that in the future, you will be able to return to those introductory slides, show it to your colleagues from research office or accountants, just to make sure that whoever in the future works with you on the administrative matters of the project will have access to the initial critical information. So as explained, let's quickly jump into some of the administrative formalities because we've really received a lot of tiny little questions coming from different organizations in a number of countries. So it's really useful to sort out the initial things first, confirm the steps that you need to take to finalize your project involvement, and also, warn you of some challenges ahead when it comes to cost accounting or the formalities in the project work. So as mentioned, this is the part of today's meeting that is going to be recorded. So you will receive link to YouTube video. You will be able to once again go through those slides. And, first of all, congratulations to all of you. You went through a very competitive process. You probably know that there was a number of applications submitted in Consumer Engagement Labs call this year, 24 applications altogether. And out of those 24 consortia, the experts rated each of the applications, and you are among those 6 excellent, highest rated applicants. So congratulations, you were selected last week. Today we already have this initial first meeting, but the actual project work will be far more intensive. It's gonna start in few days, or hopefully so March will be the moment when you are all up to the speed. But please remember that right now this is probably not yet the moment when you should uncork your champagne. Wait until you meet the milestones in the project. Wait until you start delivering co-creation workshops, because well, this presentation and today's discussions are going to prepare you for the specific challenges and requirements that you will probably need to meet. So let me start by really short explanation about the funding, cost accounting, and the frameworks we are going to work based on. So you are going to join a project that is part of Horizon Europe program, a specific subset of projects that are funded by EIT, European Institute of Innovation and Technology, and yet another subheading, projects belonging to EIT Food, one of the knowledge and innovation communities of EIT. Some of you are very familiar with EIT Food, some others are not, but in general, whatever we are going to do is based on Horizon Europe principles. So you can talk to your research officers or accountants that we are all going to apply the same standards as for many other Horizon Europe projects. At the same time, EIT Food has some additional requirements, and this might make the project a bit more challenging than standard Horizon Europe activities. EIT Food and other parts of EIT use the term CAVA, the abbreviation of CAVA, as standing for projects. It's, the formal name is Kick Value Added Activity, and everybody in EIT Food is referring to this concept. So don't be surprised when somebody tells you that you are working in a CAVA. And also, many people are going to correct you when you say a project. They might say, no, it's not a project, it's an activity, because that's the formal terminology that is used in grant agreements and in all of the legal framework. For our activity, for Consumer Engagement Labs, I'm coordinator, and again, in EIT terminology, it's called activity leader, and you are all going to be activity participants. So again, using plain language, you are going to be project partners, but don't be surprised. Again, EIT Food might correct you, saying that no, you are not partners, you are participants in this activity. So that's the formal terminology that is used. And we are also going to work with program manager. I'm not sure if at any point of time you are going to need to reach out to the program manager from EIT Food, but if you do, then it's Milda Krawzlis, our colleague from Warsaw office of EIT Food. And what Milda as program manager is doing, she is approving final versions of financial or technical documents. She's asking about the project progress, but EIT Food is not interfering in everyday operations of the project. So we are all going to benefit from a research grant, and formally it's going to be called cascade funding, meaning that EIT Food is getting a multi-million euro grant from European Commission, from EIT, and EIT Food is redistributing the funding to participants in a number of activities, including our one. So formally, don't be again surprised when somebody starts referring to so-called cascade funding. It's just a name used within Horizon Europe framework. And again, don't be surprised when the agreement that you are going to sign might refer to the term sub-granting. It's the logic of Horizon Europe. EIT Food, as knowledge and innovation community, gets multi-million euro grant, and sub-grants anybody who is delivering the actual project work in all of those activities. But of course, we all have budgets, we have cost categories, and we are all following the standard rules of Horizon Europe. In EIT Food ecosystem, sooner or later, you will also need to get familiar with some of the platforms, tools, and formal requirements. One of those platforms that, many of you will either love or hate is EIT Food Plaza. It's the main software platform used by EIT Food to manage all of the work plans, budgets, financial reporting. In a moment, I will also mention that EIT Food is trying to move away from Plaza and change the platform. I'm not sure if this is going to affect us this year. Hopefully, yes. But in general, either Plaza or another IT platform will be the main working environment, the place where you will be able to see your approved work plan, budget, and the place where you are going to also to submit your financial reports by the end of the year. Apart from Plaza, you will also receive invitations to join EIT Food Hive, which is a bit like LinkedIn or Facebook, social media platform of EIT Food. It's not used for project reporting, but it's rather an environment where people could talk to one another, participate in group discussions, ask questions that might be answered by the collective intelligence. And Plaza is used for very formal financial project-related issues. Hive is more like a way of reaching out, finding also new project partners, communicating with the community. And one important piece of information is that some of you are EIT Food partners, some of you are not, but it doesn't really matter from the perspective of our activity, because starting from 2023, organizations can participate in activities like consumer engagement labs without being EIT Food partners. Partners of EIT Food receive some additional benefits, but also, the partnership involves additional annual payments and some further burdens. So this is not an issue that should worry you right now, but if you consider EIT Food partnership as something relevant for you, you might definitely reach out to somebody from EIT Food partnership managers, regional coordinators, and check the options. But for our activity, it does not really matter. So you don't need to worry about partnership subscriptions, formal approvals, or annual fees, because it's not relevant for this type of a project. But what is going to be relevant, and this is extremely important, the type of really urgent action that you will have to take is to register yourself and your organization in EIT Food Plaza platform. For those of you who have participated in some EIT Food activities before, you're already a Plaza user. So the road is open, you can just continue using Plaza. But some of the organizations that are going to deliver consumer engagement labs this year are new to EIT Food ecosystem. And in such cases, you will have to wait a little bit for some actions taken by EIT Food. They are going to validate you as an organization that has applied for a PIC number, that has certain financial details. And hopefully in the next step, you will receive a link with request to just enroll in Plaza, enter your email address, and set up your account. With this, I have the impression that there might be some surprises ahead, because EIT Food declares that they want to switch to another IT platform. For the time being, we don't have any details of those migration plans. But if they really transition to another platform, it might mean that our colleagues from EIT Food headquarters would not send you Plaza invitations, because they expect that in the coming days there will be some other pathway to follow. But in any case, regardless of whether it's going to be Plaza or another IT platform, the rules are sort of similar. You will need to register, and you will need to actively use this platform to get access to agreement, budget, and all of the legal and financial aspects of the project. And in EIT Food Plaza, there are two standard roles that you have to identify, and you need to make sure that you make conscious decision to select those people. Each participant, each organization that is registered in EIT Food Plaza needs to have at least 2 users who are formally registered on this platform. One user is called master contact, the other is called financial contact. The master contact is the main contact person the person who will receive all of the formal communication coming from EIT Food, link to sign the contract. And my suggestion is that master contact should not be your CEO or rector, because this person will probably not notice some of the urgent messages that are being sent by EIT Food. The master contact should probably be somebody who is coordinating the activity, or who acts on behalf of the organization on the side of research office or some sort of accounting office, somebody who is responsive and who definitely has access to the email throughout the entire cycle of the project. The second person, the person who turns out is even more important than master contact, is financial contact. And I'm highlighting this importance because we just in the same project in Consumer Engagement Labs, we've run into major problems with some of your colleagues, participants from last year, because sometimes they declared external accountants as the financial contact, or people who no longer work in the organization. Financial contact is actually, I would say, the most important person of this whole list, because this is the person who is going to submit your final financial reports by the end of the project. So January next year, the financial contact will receive a lot of messages explaining what the person should do on behalf of your organization, how to report the costs, where to submit it. And financial contact is going to be the only person authorized to speak on behalf of your organization and submit the financial details. When you sign agreement with EIT Food, you will also formalize the roles of master and financial contacts, and choose those people wisely, because they need to be available and they need to actually support you in the final project reporting. Moving on. With EIT Food, some of you might get in touch with the regional offices. They are sometimes called CLCs, collocation centers. EIT Food also has headquarters in Belgium. Depending on the country, you might either work with colleagues from the EIT Food office in Bilbao, Madrid, so Spain and Greece are working with CLC South, or with colleagues from Warsaw. So here the participants from Poland and Romania will probably reach out to the office in Warsaw. But in fact, those local offices are not going to have resources to support your in terms of help desk facilities or your everyday participation in the project, because EIT Food is using a standard email account, participants at EIT Food EU. This account is normally managed by our colleague, Dr. Paula Almiron, and she diplomatically and carefully tries to answer all of the questions that are channeled through this standard help desk facility. So whenever you have questions about financial issues, registrations, agreements, it usually goes to this account, participants EIT Food EU. But of course, EIT Food is asking us as activity coordinators to ensure that you have the information, and sometimes when possible, we also try to act as the first point of contact. So whenever people have questions, we might also try to answer. But one kind request coming from EIT and EIT Food, EIT Food is managing a large portfolio of activities, and EIT is managing even bigger portfolio because they have several kicks. So don't send your questions to EIT as European organization to Budapest because they won't have resources to answer them. Don't send those questions to different people in EIT Food headquarters, regional offices, or also DGRTD, because this is what sometimes causes tensions or makes people quite angry. We are really supposed to use the standard communication pathways. So the central email address, participants at EIT Food EU, should be the main point of contact. But of course, if there are certain questions or things that should be escalated or that require further advice, people in EIT Food would probably know how to channel this and how to reach out to the proper stakeholders. And let me also anticipate some of your questions. Some of you have sent us detailed questions about budgets or the ways of reporting cost in the project. I think it's quite early. We are just starting the project work, but for the sake of clarity, to ensure that you also have recordings of today's briefing and you can share it with your colleagues, let me very briefly provide some initial explanations. Each of you submitted a project application in which you specified the split of your costs, and basically you are just obliged to follow the commitments that were sent as part of your project application. As part of this project, you will have probably a group of costs that are considered eligible. So this is something that can be funded from this project. It might be that some of you will also have certain costs that you have to bear, but they might not be reimbursed from the grant. Well, giving you some examples, well, you are probably using computers, software, you might have Zoom or Teams licenses, and well, I don't expect that you are going to ever try to reimburse those costs from the budget of our project. So those are costs that you know that you incur, but they are not eligible. They are not going to be reimbursed directly from the project budget. But of course, what we are trying to ensure is to help you eliminate costs that could be ineligible but were not really planned. So we don't want you to run into some problems or have unpleasant surprises when you discover that you spent money on things that could never be reimbursed from the grant. And here, as part of the official project budget, normally in Horizon Europe or other grants, you would have the part of the grant and the part of co-funding. And first, very good news for all of you is that in this particular activity, you don't have any co-funding requirement. So basically, 100% of the funding is provided from EIT grant, as long as you stay within the budget that you've declared. I already know what it looked like last year, and we had some participants that were trying to report substantially higher costs than the costs that were initially planned. And EIT doesn't oppose such cases. So you are free to report as many costs as you wish, but just remember that there is a threshold of the level of budget that you have, and anything above this level would just become co-funding. So that's what happened to your colleagues from last year, and just want to warn you that you need to stay within the budget that was described in your project application. Within the grant that you receive, part of the costs are direct costs and part are indirect costs. I hope that most of you are familiar with this concept. Direct costs are the actual cost that you report. So you calculate parts of salaries, of the personnel cost, you collect invoices for all the purchases, you collect travel documents and report every single euro that was spent on the project. Indirect costs are calculated as percentage of all of the eligible direct costs that you incurred. So if you spend 1,000 euro of direct cost, by default, you would get 25%, so 250 euro of indirect cost. And remember that depending on your internal regulations, those direct and indirect costs could be managed flexibly. So normally what happens at many universities or companies is that indirect costs are used to cover some of the expenses that you cannot put into the standard project budget. Like you need to consult a lawyer, you need to purchase software subscription, you need to do something that you cannot directly cover from the direct cost budget. And that's the reason for having indirect cost, 25% of the total spending. Within direct costs, each of you submitted application that was clearly defining your budget. So part of direct cost budget covers the cost of personnel, salaries of people who are working for your organization. Part of this is travel budget, transportation, accommodation, daily subsistences. And part of this are cost of purchases, so officially other cost of goods, works, and services. So those three categories are allowed. In consumer engagement labs, you are not allowed to use other types of cost. For example, you cannot buy equipment. So it's another cost category in Horizon Europe, but you are just not allowed to use it. You cannot also use internally purchased services, which might be relevant for groups of companies which trade among one another. So basically, personnel, travel, and purchases of cost of goods and services are those three categories that you can report. And each of you were using the project application to specify your target budgets. In the call document, you had as the starting point the suggestion of the default budgets, but as you hopefully know, well, some of the organizations modified those budgets so that it's not that every single university will have personnel cost of 10,000 euro. Some of you decided to slightly increase it, some decided to go down. And unfortunately, now we just have to stick to the budgets that each of you declared. Those budgets are going to become part of your grant agreement, and at least for several months, you will have to follow them. We have some concerns about certain cases because some organizations substantially decrease the budget for travel, and it might just not be sufficient to cover the cost of a project meeting if we decide to hold it, for example, in Brussels. But don't worry, during the year, we are still going to have a chance to modify the budget. So there will still be an opportunity in the middle of the year to potentially increase one of the categories and decrease the other. But in general, those of you who already started asking us those questions by emails, look into your project application because each organization submitted the target budgets, and this is exactly what you are going to adopt as the basis of your work this year. And we'll share with you those slides because there are some tiny little details that explain certain challenges of cost accounting and financial decisions. I don't think that it's so important or relevant for all of you. Some organizations are very familiar when it comes to Horizon Europe funding. Some others might be not, and then you might require even further, more detailed explanations. But in general, let me quickly go through some of those challenges highlighted on some slides. I might not get into all of the details, but then you will have the slides, you will be able to ask us questions, and we hope to support you throughout this process. So with personal costs, remember that whoever is going to work on this project needs to be your employee. And you can either employ people specifically for this project, or you can assign existing employees, team members, to spend some time on this project. And most likely you will need to document this work by means of timesheets. And don't be surprised, by the end of the year, the calculations of the personnel costs might be surprisingly challenging, because it's not that 100% of the salaries that you pay are going to be booked as the actual eligible cost. With travel, whenever you travel, you have to follow your internal policies. There might be some rules that stipulate that, for example, you are not allowed to take business class flights, or when you book train tickets, you can only take second class, not the first one, standards of hotel booking, etc. You need to make sure that you follow the same rules that are custom for all of your other projects. And finally, the most challenging part, cost of goods, works, and services. Here, whenever auditors come to organization benefiting from grants like EIT Food, they start by checking internal purchasing procedures. And some of you might be subject to public procurement regulations. So make sure that whatever you purchase will stay aligned with the legal standards, organizational standards that you have. If you talk to colleagues from your research office or procurement office, they probably won't be surprised, because those standards are very similar to all other Horizon Europe projects. But if you are new to Horizon Europe, then I would suggest one potential discussion partner that might really help you in your local legal, tax, and financial framework, because each European member state has a network of national or regional contact points for Horizon Europe, and those people are supposed to help you. So if somebody is contacting the national regional contact point and saying that this is the first Horizon Europe grant that I'm doing, those people are supposed to actually help you, guide you, suggest you, for example, how you can calculate personnel cost in accordance with national legislation. So I strongly advise you to reach out to those contact points, because particularly personnel cost and the specific requirements of labor laws in each country might be a bit challenging. You might very soon discover that you are not able to cover 100% of the salaries from EIT Food grants, because Horizon Europe modalities are slightly different than certain legal standards in a specific member state. And giving you a very basic example, imagine that your budget looks like this. You have 10,000 euro personal costs, 1,000 euro travel, 4,000 euro cost of purchases. Those are direct costs, and 25% of direct costs, 3,750 euros, it's indirect. And of course, you can only get those indirect costs if you actually spend the money that was budgeted for direct cost. Now, in personal costs, they are going to be quite challenging. This is the reason why you should talk to your research officers or national contact points. in this presentation, you get a link to Horizon Europe annotated grant agreement. Good luck reading this. Those 11 pages describing personal cost accounting might prove challenging to digest. So that's, I would say, main reason to reach out to people and double check what you can reimburse from the grant and which parts of the salaries are probably not going to become eligible costs. But one thing that is super important, and this is a typical mistake that we observed throughout the years in this project and some other projects, don't think that you could offer additional contracts to your existing employees so that apart from the standard salaries, they also make some additional money specifically from this project. In Horizon Europe, it doesn't work this way. What you have to do is just to reimburse part of the existing salary, part or the whole salary of your employees, salary that is normally paid by your organization. So it's going to be tricky, and I particularly draw your attention to personal cost because this is what auditors inquire, and this is what is sometimes causing a lot of challenges. So here on the following slides, you have some creative examples, like simulation team consisting of 4 people. Some of those people are currently employed. One person is going to be hired specifically for this project, and you can read those slides. We try to explain what to do, how to account for those costs. In general, it's up to you to define the way of splitting personnel costs. Based on the applications that you've submitted, you are obliged to involve certain facilitators who are declared in the application. But it might be that some of those people are currently not employed by your organization, so you will either have to employ them as personnel or employ them as contractors who follow some purchasing procedures. And in general, just be prepared that you will need to formally allocate those employees to the project, and also make sure that you report their costs. So on the following slides, you have some examples of calculations. It's going to be a bit challenging, but we have a lot of time to do it. And in general, don't worry. You have time till the end of December to spend the money on personnel costs. And if you start booking those costs relatively late, you will still be able to make sure that you use your personnel cost budget before the end of the year. But in general, don't consider this to be easygoing task. This is, planning for personnel cost will require your interactions with your accountants, research office, national or regional contact point, and double checking all of the rules because they could be tricky, and it might be that some elements of the salaries will not be covered from the EIT grant. And you just need to make sure that you understand the rules. Hopefully your colleagues will be able to help you with this. And apart from personnel costs, which you will need to report by the end of December, you will need to make sure that you register the time that people spend on the project. And again, it might be that your institution already has a standard IT system or documents that are timesheets. If not, then you can use default solutions proposed for Horizon Europe. But again, this is probably something that you need to discuss with your research office, accountants, or national contact points to make sure that you are doing this in accordance with the national legislations and the standards for personnel management. So here, just to give you an example what it could look like, by the end of the year, you might have 4, 5, or 6 members of the team. Each of those people will have a number of days that were reported as the work on the project. This will be translated into so-called FTE, full-time equivalent. So a percentage of the full-time employment of a whole year. So not surprisingly, there might be numbers like 0.08. And you will need to calculate the average cost per day. And this is the basis for personal cost calculations. From our experiences, personal cost in Horizon Europe projects, this is a genuine nightmare. Even accountants sometimes don't understand why the numbers differ, and sometimes you are chasing several cents and you don't understand why the calculations are not matching what you have in your Excel. But just be prepared that this is something that will have to be done. And also for travel, make sure that if you are going to use travel budgets, then you use it only for people who are formally working on this project. So, if auditors come to visit you, they will question any travel spending that is not made by people who are actually employed. And of course, you will need to make sure that whenever you travel, you have some justifications. People are reporting working days on those specific days of travel, and it has to be aligned with your internal policies. In the same way, well, if you, by the end of the year, if you are going to report the travel costs, be prepared that you will be asked about the name of people, destination of each trip, and you might need to provide some short justification explaining what type of trip it was and how it was linked to this specific project. So try to manage those aspects of your project wisely, because later in the beginning of next year, you are definitely going to report details of those spendings. In the same way, you also have purchases. Most of you will have the budget in the range of 4,000 euros for costs of goods, works, and services. And those should be purchases that are needed to implement your tasks. So be prepared that, again, whenever you spend the money, you need to be able to justify it, and make sure that you follow your internal purchasing procedures. It's really important because sometimes, a team of scientists goes crazy and discards all of the public procurement standards, and then your institution might tell you that you will never be able to report those costs as part of the research grant. So make sure that you understand the rules. And here, also to answer questions that we already received, some of your colleagues were asking how the money could be spent. And there is a very straightforward answer. Please make sure that you read the call document, because in the call document to which you responded, there was the description of each cost category. And in particular, this cost of purchases, goods, works, and services, were described in the same way as in the actual project proposal. So here, this is the excerpt of the project proposal. You will also get access to this document. It's very flexible. We try to ensure that it's really accommodating, that you could spend the money in many different ways, but still, there are some limits. For example, you cannot use the budget for purchasing equipment. You might have also here problems with purchasing software. But when it comes to services, data, even publications and the cost of logistics, we really try to make sure that this definition, the justification for the cost is as accommodating as possible. It's going to be useful for you because this will help you spend your money, but still remember that whatever you spend, you need to be also ready to answer questions of EIT Food or auditors asking you how the specific purchase can be linked to the teams or the actual work carried out as part of the project. Now, again, some basic rules based on experiences from previous years and challenges that we've spotted. First of all, we would strongly encourage you to make sure that whatever you purchase is purchased in ways that ensure some levels of competitiveness. So you collect a number of proposals, you have evidence that you selected the proposal, the supplier that offers the best value for money. In some cases, you might be obliged to follow public procurement regulations. In some other cases, you are not obliged, but still it's better to ensure some level of competitiveness. Otherwise, the auditors might complain about your ways of documenting the purchases. And again, we are talking about very small budgets, so hopefully this is not going to cause some troubles, but just make sure that you follow some common sense rules. And again, by the end of the year, you will need to specify all of the items that you spent throughout the year. And this might be quite surprising information for those of you who are familiar with Horizon Europe projects, because in typical Horizon Europe projects, you don't need to report every single purchase, every single trip, unless the costs exceed 15% of personnel cost. In EIT Food, you will actually be obliged to report every single cost item. And for every single cost item, you have to provide name, description, following certain standards. So don't think that this could be treated lightly, because the final reporting of those purchases might actually take a while, and your accountants might also question why you spend money on certain things if there are no problems with documenting this. So this is just example. You will get those slides. In terms of reporting, you have the time to spend your budget till the end of the year. Around the middle of the year, we'll have a chance to communicate with you and ask whether you would like to change something in your budget allocations. Maybe if you discover that you need more money for travel, you could still reduce your personal budget, or you can shift money between cost categories. But again, this is something that we would need to do in the middle of the year as part of the annual project amendment. But whatever you do, remember that this project runs, or your involvement in this project runs till the end of December. So all of your eligible costs will need to be incurred before the end of this calendar year. And well, later this year, you will receive a lot of detailed instructions from EIT Food about the final reporting. So now moving on from the cost issues, which are important, and in a moment we are also going to answer questions that are popping up in chat. Let's also talk about the specialist aspects of the project. We are going to work together. Today's session is really about the administrative stuff, but very soon we would like to talk to you about project management standards, the quality control, the tools, methodology that we are going to share to support your project implementation. And of course, we'll communicate on a regular basis. We'll have online meetings. Hopefully, in the second part of the year, we could also meet face to face. And EIT Food expects that University of Warsaw assumes this coordination role. So don't bother people from EIT Food with everyday implementation questions, because they just delegated this role to us as activity coordinator. From our side, in a moment, you will have a chance to meet our other colleagues. So you already know Magdalena, you are communicating with her. Adnan is also another member of our team. We'll try to encourage you to use a set of tools that we are going to share as the basis for reporting, document storage. We'll grant you access to Box as the cloud platform. We, at least for internal meetings, will continue using Zoom. Also, we'll try to encourage you to be available from time to time via WhatsApp, particularly when there are some really urgent things and we see that people don't react to emails. We are going to chase you also via WhatsApp, because sometimes there might be some really urgent legal, financial, or administrative issues. And just trying to explain the steps that we'll have to take. Already today or tomorrow, we'll try to get from you a list of contact details for all members of your team. People who are going to be added to the Box folders, people who will need to be granted access to the project methodology and other documents. So Magdalena will send you a short Excel spreadsheet with fields where you can just enter details of all of your team members, including phone and also confirmation whether the person is using WhatsApp or not, just in case. And remember that in your applications, you declared names of facilitators who are going to work on this project, and you can't really change them. I mean, the names, the identity of facilitators was one of crucial elements that were evaluated by experts as part of the initial evaluation process. So you can't decide to change it now. Remember that even if you run into some problems, you ideally should really work with those people who were initially declared. But if you discover that there are some major issues, there might be emergencies, there might be serious problems with people changing jobs or moving to other organizations, let us know about those cases. But in general, EIT Food would be very unhappy about cases when somebody submits application listing and providing profiles of some experts and then deciding that those experts are not going to be involved in the project. This was a crucial element of the evaluation. The second thing that we'll ask you to do, for those team members, those experts who are going to get access to the project methodology and internal documents, Magdalena will send you very short NDAs, so that before you sign the actual project agreements and all of the formalities in the grant are finalized, we really would like to start sharing with you all of the internal documents. So members of your team would need to sign non-disclosure agreements to confirm that they are going to keep the details of methodology confidential. And just make sure that you collect those signatures. It's very lightweight document, as you will see, and each person who returns the NDA will also have the access to the document folders and the set of documents that we share with you. And the third thing that I strongly encourage you to do very soon is to talk to your research officers, accountants, lawyers, to make sure that you are well prepared for the participation in Horizon Europe project. So verify some internal steps that you might need to take to initiate the project, to account for costs. And again, for those of you who have already accounting questions, formally, you will participate in the project in this calendar year. So even though the selection was done in February and most of you are planning to start the work in March, don't be surprised when in the final cost report, you will just report the participation starting from the 1st of January, finishing on the last day of December. This has some implications for cost accountants, so just remember that you are a participant of this project for the entire calendar year. And very soon, we'll also start scheduling with each of you more focused meetings so that, with the 6 consortia, we would like to talk about details of the labs that you are planning, share with you methodology. So you will receive manual and sets of documents. You will be able to go through those documents before we start more detailed thematic discussions. And remember that those targets that we have to meet together are going to be quite ambitious. So you will need to run consumer co-creation sessions before the end of June. Companies will need to select products that are streamlined for commercialization already this year. And EIT Food is strongly insisting on specific innovative results next year. So each country, each consortium will need to deliver at least one new product that enters the market next year. We are not worried about those results. So far, this activity was very successful, and we strongly believe that the methodology, the tools that you are going to get are supporting the creative processes and are really increasing the probability of having successful new products on the market. But it's also up to your commitment, activity, and proactive attitudes that you take in the coming weeks. We'll, of course, also instruct you about certain communication standards. EIT is very careful when it comes to visual identity. So you will very soon notice the use of logotypes, the ways of phrasing messages, the need to refer to the name of the project and the proper affiliation of EIT Food. But also remember that we are not allowed to speak on behalf of EIT as European institution or EIT Food. We are just project participants. So when you talk to media, when you publish something online, you will probably need to be mindful speaking on behalf of your organization rather than European entity. And it's just the beginning. It took a bit longer than expected, but in a moment we are going to turn off the recording and also switch to your questions and maybe more interactive discussions. But also it's just the beginning. We are still going to share with you tool sets, methodologies, documents that are used, for example, with respect to GDPR, there might be needs for ethical approvals in some of your institutions, and of course, a lot of reporting requirements. But that's all ahead of us, and maybe I will also shift the mic to Magdalena for the very last slide from this slide set. Magda.
Thank you, Krzysztof. I'd like to follow discussion about what will happen next. I would like to share with you the methodology of labs. Firstly, I would like to share with you the labs manual, which includes guidelines for recruitment of participants and step-by-step, very detailed script for the co-creation sessions. This manual will require some adaptations according to the societal challenge you selected for the labs, the target consumer group you'd like to work with, and the product category you'd like to work with. So we will work together on those adaptations. Sharing the manual will be followed by personalized training. We will schedule in the coming weeks. After receiving your NDAs, I will be able to share the manual with you, and we will start planning the training with the labs facilitators, with each organization separately. And except labs manual is the first thing I'd like to share, but another thing will be reporting instructions. We will give you the access to the Boxcom folder. Each consortium, each organization will have a separate folder for submitting the documents, reporting the outcomes of the labs. And this will be shared also after receiving the NDAs. So please expect an email from me after today's meeting with the NDA template and also information about how to share the contact details of your team. I think this will be all from me now, and Krzysztof.
And I think, we apologize for very long presentation, but we really thought that this part that is being recorded might be useful for you in the future. So in a moment, I will stop recording. We'll move to the Q&A part of the meeting.